10 seconds. Oh, you're live. Sorry.
We're live. Good. Welcome back to the Gruber Morning Show. I guess we've been live for a while. Today we're covering a number of additional EV topics. One of the first ones that we found interesting was battery costs for electric vehicles. Well, it's a lot. According to Car Scoops, there's a Ford Focus Electric that cost the family $11,000 for the vehicle. This car was going to a very excited 17-year-old Avery Savinsky, and he said it was fine at first. I loved it so much, and it was small, quiet, and cute, and all of a sudden it stopped working. This was only after 60,000 miles. He said the dash lit up like a Christmas tree, and shortly thereafter it died altogether. At this point, Savinsky's granddad stepped in to help. It turns out that this is a pretty common problem with this particular car, he said. The Ford dealership had advised them that they could replace the battery and it would only cost $14,000. I remember the car cost them $11,000. But the worst part was?
That this car, it was just that the car was valued less than the replacement battery.
But the $14,000 did not include the labor to install the battery.
Oh, that's correct.
Now you're looking at some additional thousands of dollars to put in the battery. So what does this mean if a car is totaled? Well, it means that we get immediately totaled because the definition of a total car is when the repairs exceed the value of the car. So this is a prime example of a totaled car. The problem here is, and it's short term, the factories or the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers that make these cars, are not equipped at the service center levels to repair these battery packs, so replacement is your only option. Tesla has the same problem with the Model S. When they're out of warranty, you have a $25,000 to $35,000 car, and it needs a battery pack that sets you back $22,000. Shops like ours that actually open up the battery pack and are able to repair what's inside will charge a fraction of that amount. But the problem there is there's so few of us out there right now. So what will this family do now?
So buying a car only to have a massive issue that leaves the car nearly valueless is a major fear for everybody, especially with all the new vehicles coming out. And especially when buying a used car from an individual or a non-certified dealer.
You know, it used to be with internal combustion engine cars, the major costs were distributed across a number of different categories. You had a transmission, you had the engine, you had, all of the support, the fuel, the exhaust systems, and it was spread out fairly evenly. In an electric vehicle, you have so few parts and one major item, which is that battery. Mm-hmm. And we find the same thing in the Tesla world with these out-of-warranty vehicles. People are very gun-shy about getting into a car with the potential of having a $22,000 problem at some point in time. So at this point, the used car EV market is somewhat depressed because of that, especially the out-of-warranty cars.
Absolutely. And do you think that that is going to remain the case until independent service is widely available?
Well, as independent service grows, customers will have options. It's similar to the internal combustion engine cars. If the car dealers were the only ones doing tires, the cost of that would be extraordinarily higher. Mm-hmm. But you have a bunch of companies that have popped up that specialize in that sort of service. Mm-hmm. Discount Tire, for example, comes to mind. Big O, any of those. They can do a much better job than a car dealer because that's all they do is either tires, brakes, exhaust, transmission repair, that sort of thing. So until the market matures and there are more companies like Gruber Motor Company out there that can actually repair down a component level, this is going to be a huge concern.
That's understandable. So, I mean, it sounds like there's not a whole lot of options for this family at this point.
Well, I think there was a buyback offer for $500.
Yeah.
And this is the same problem that happened with Priuses initially. You have a $5,500 battery in a Prius. And when that battery goes bad, that $7,000 car suddenly becomes a $5,000 car because, I'm sorry, a $500 car because nobody wants to spend that money to upgrade or to repair the battery. So yeah, until independent maintenance grows, this is going to be a problem. What is our next topic?
Let's take a look here.
So Pete, I have a question if you want it.
Sure.
Looks like Corey is saying, I have a 2015 S85D, still 1 year on the extended warranty. What is the approximate cost to diagnose / repair a battery from your company?
To repair a battery for a Tesla Model S that you're describing is in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $7,000 instead of the $22,000. Typically what goes wrong with these batteries is either the electronics, they have battery management boards inside on a number of different battery modules. Sometimes we find defective components, defective chips, and other times it is a cell that has gone resistive, and that's typically the failure mode. You have 7,000 cells in a Tesla Model S. They're little vape cigarette cells. Any one of those going resistive will begin to kill the car because the battery safety management systems in the car will only allow a charge to the lowest cell in the car. Finding that cell is what's so expensive because you have 7,000. That cell, and we simply cut it out of circuit. We leave it right where it sits. It's potted into a module. The car never realizes that 1 out of 7,000 cells went MIA. And if it's a board repair, same thing. Once the defective component is replaced, the car is operational again. So it looks like MG has released the first teaser of a Cyberster, they're calling it, which is an electric roadster. If you remember, MG is that UK company that that's been making great sports cars for many decades. What we found interesting about this release is that it was inspired by the Tesla Roadster, which of course we're very committed to, having been the first car that we learned how to repair Teslas with.
And if you all haven't seen this car, definitely look it up. It's slick. It looks really, really amazing.
The Cyberster. I think there's another page there. There we go. Oh, so this concept car also is using the Elotron type doors. I had to look that up actually. I didn't know what that meant, but I've certainly seen them. An Elotron door apparently are the doors that either fold up or swing up. You know, the Lamborghini style, the old, the Mercedes gull-wing style. So it will make this a very unusual electric car. And again, like Richard recommended, look it up, and I think you'll be impressed with the styling.
Are you aware of any other electric vehicle that has those doors right now?
Not the doors, but I can tell you about one that I'm excited about. It's the Electromechanica. They go by Solo, and they make a 3-wheeler electric car. It's a commuter car, basically. You know, almost looks like a motorcycle with fairing on it, but of course, much more elaborate than that. They're actually making a 50s Porsche Roadster, and with the original colors, the retro look of the dash inside, but it's all EV, all electronic, and I think the sticker on that is $150,000 for pre-orders. But for those of you that are into vintage racing and that would like to move into the 21st century and get into EVs, that is a car that I would recommend. Looks like a lot of fun. It's a 2-seater, convertible, of course. But look it up. Electromechanica, their Roadster.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
So it looks like Apple is waking up again with their electric vehicle program. we found an article that they have grabbed some major talent away from Lamborghini. Gentleman's name is Luigi Taraborelli, and he's a veteran engineer at Lamborghini who has helped many previous designs at Lamborghini. The Huracan, the Aventador, and I think I'm leaving out one here. But Apple's experience with the electric car actually started in 2014, and Steve Jobs had always been intrigued by the notion of making an electric car, probably inspired by some of his contemporaries at the time, including Elon, who were definitely embarking on that. But they are becoming more persistent and serious about their debut into electric cars. They've been actually toying with it since 2014, a lot of false starts. At some points, they poached talent from Tesla and Mercedes-Benz, and offered major incentives, of course, to jump ship and join their company, and then went through a series of layoffs and false starts. And currently, though, it looks like a hire of somebody like Luigi means they're getting serious. And if Luigi has any influence on the styling of their electric car, this could be an over-the-top EV, because in my opinion, the Lamborghini styling is my favorite in the exotic car world.
It's an amazing design. And what role did Luigi have in designing the Huracan? I think it was Urus?
The Urus was the one that I was missing,
Aventador.
He was involved in body design, and most recently the Lamborghini Tzero. So we're hoping that Apple finally becomes serious about an electric car. It would be fun to see what they're able to produce and come up with.
That's awesome. That would be an amazing thing to see. Let's go ahead and check out what our...
Those of you on TikTok, if you want to switch over to YouTube, we can entertain your questions there.
I see some comments coming in. I appreciate all of you being interacting with us. Unfortunately, the way that we have this morning show set up, we can't go in and answer those questions. If you have a question you want to have answered, hop on over to YouTube, throw it in the chat. We'll be informed by our moderators, and we will do our best to field that question. Now, I had a quick question for you, Pete. So, the thing I've noticed about Apple with their cars, they're being really secretive about it. Everything is airtight. Why might they be doing that? Do you have any information on that?
There was a long string of negative publicity, and it was from the early days of the modified versions of the Lexus SUV that they were aligned with. It did terribly in the test runs, but the testing itself wasn't so much vehicle related. It was mostly in the areas of LiDAR and other hardware equipment. Then there was a recent accident or near accident when they were testing a vehicle and they almost hit a jogger. Nevertheless, despite all these setbacks, it looks like Apple is beginning to get more serious about getting back into EVs and actually producing a product.
That is exciting. One of my favorite quotes from Elon Musk is this very straightforward thing he said about the Apple car and their project. Don't quote me, I think I might be paraphrasing, but he basically said, it's hard to hide that you're producing something when you're hiring thousands and thousands of people for it.
Right, yeah,
right?
That was when they were hiring engineers left and right,
yeah.
So their ability to remain or keep it secretive definitely was compromised by the enormous amount of hires that they were bringing in to work on that project.
I think it might have had something to do with the poaching from Tesla, too.
Yeah.
You guys got a couple questions back here?
Sure.
All right.
Questions?
Okay, 1 second here for me. You say you are seeing comments on TikTok?
Yes.
We just can't answer the ones on TikTok right now. Our
Yeah, that's
technology will improve, and eventually we're going to be able to do both TikTok and YouTube at the same time, so hang in there with us.
Okay, so we have a question from Real Gamer. It says, my 2020 long-range Model 3 is just about to get past the battery warranty at 120,000 miles. Does Gruber Motors service it? Is there anything you can't service?
The yeah, the question as to whether we can, is there any EV that we can't service? Yes, and it's by choice. It's not by lack of technical ability. We find that to be highly effective, we have to get very focused on a particular product. And at this point, it's Tesla. We started with the old Tesla Roadsters, and that helped us segue into the later Tesla model vehicles. When we first started, we were repairing Volts, Bolts, even Priuses, repairing batteries. And you can't really get good at anything when you're that scattered. However, the Model 3 that this customer is talking about, yes, that's definitely in our wheelhouse. We work on all of the Tesla models, and especially when they're out of warranty.
So it sounds like that's something we'd take a swing at.
Oh, totally, yeah. The Model 3s are, it's actually an easier vehicle to repair than the Model S in some ways.
Okay, so we got some other questions. We have a Corey again. He's asking, what do you know about Tesla exploring graphene batteries? I understand those could provide the extended range. Do you think these could be replacements for, say, the current Tesla packs in the next 5 years?
So the graphene solution in batteries is definitely the future. We don't know what Tesla is currently working on, and nor any other EV manufacturer, because that kind of data is intellectual property, and they're very secretive about that. I can't imagine that they're not exploring those newer options that would result in better mileage, less susceptibility to fire, and a faster charge rate. We were approached 6 months ago by a company that actually makes graphene battery packs. And they wanted us to take one of our Model S's, turn it into a test mule, and test their graphene battery pack. The design challenge was to attempt to fit these graphene modules into the existing Tesla Model S battery tub, and that's where we fell short. It would have required a redesign. It would have required a lot of engineering time and effort. So we turned that over to Tesla, and we don't know how they're proceeding with this company. But I can assure you that within the next 5 years, graphene will definitely be on the radar, be on the map, and probably be in vehicles, because it does appear to be a much more efficient way to store DC energy.
I have a question for you on that, Pete. So it's clear that graphene is the next step. Do you think that this is the final step? Do you think that there is something that we're going to develop as far as battery technology goes that's going to then surpass graphene?
Well, you know, I'm an older guy compared to you guys, right? All right. Having said that, I mean, when I was a kid in the 60s and interested in electronics, the amount of change that has occurred is exponential. So my expectation is that we're going to be seeing things within the next few decades that we can't even dream of right now. So yes, absolutely. Technology has nowhere to go but up, improve, get more efficient, and amaze us all as we continue to use these wonderful tools.
That's what I like to hear.
Okay, we got another question back here. This one's from Larry Reed. He wants to know, do you think EV cars will affect the grid if everyone switches?
You know, everybody asks that, and it's a huge concern. How will EVs affect the grid? Do we have enough power? At this point, the transition has been manageable. And in a worst-case scenario, we may have to go back into nuclear generating stations temporarily. And properly done, it can be fairly clean. Much cleaner, of course, than coal, which is overheating our planet, and creating greenhouse gases. And so I don't have any concerns about the grid being able to keep up, especially when you consider that you have other alternatives like solar. There is, if you Google this, there is so much energy that is hitting this planet at any given point in time that would more than meet all of our energy needs, even for thousands of years into the future, that I think technology will keep pace and will continue to solve that problem, make sure that we have enough power.
So it's not only that too, but some of these cars, like the Ford Lightning, they're going to be able to put back into the grid
Vehicle to grid, yes.
Yeah, so that'll help. And then you also have massive incentives for companies like here in Arizona, APS, for example, massive grants and the government trying to incentivize, the expansion of the grid.
Good point. One of the early EVs that we have here from 1997, the AC Propulsion Tzero, was a revolutionary design that actually spawned Tesla. Both Elon and Martin were intrigued by this car, inspired by it, and that's what created the Tesla Roadster. That car was way ahead of its time, and it actually had V2G, vehicle to grid. In other words, what that means is you park that in your house, and if you have solar, you can use your car as a DC storage system and upcharge and downcharge, whichever direction you want to go. What amazes me and surprises me is that the Teslas that came after that do not yet have V2G. If the Ford Lightning has it, I applaud them. That is definitely a effective way of managing your energy.
And also on that note, it is worth noting that there are charging options that bypass the grid. Off-grid solar charging, right? You can have your own personal power supply straight from the sun, where you don't have to worry who else is getting on the grid, who else is charging. If it's if it goes down, you don't have to worry about that. You can take the solar straight from the sun, straight to your car.
Good point, good point. One of the articles we saw this week was tractors are going electric. We're talking about farmers and tractors now. There's a company called Foxconn that has signed a manufacturing agreement and acquired an Ohio facility from Lordstown Motors. Now, in addition to building EVs for Lordstown and Fisker, it turns out, Foxconn will now also be manufacturing an advanced driver optional electric tractor and battery packs for Monarch tractors. Now, Foxconn is actually owned by Honhai Technology Group, better known as Foxconn. They are the world's largest electronics manufacturer with nearly 50 years of experience building everything from iPhones to gaming consoles, and most recently, EVs, semiconductors, and alternative intelligence tech. In late 2021, the struggling Lordstown Motor agreed to sell this division to Honhai or Foxconn. The tractor is either driverless or manned. Now, the first thing that came to mind for me is you've probably heard the complaints from the John Deere tractor owners, where John Deere made it extremely difficult and also impossible for farmers to do their own oil changes on their tractors. Farmers are very resourceful. They're used to working on their own equipment, and they don't like driving large, heavy equipment like this down to a dealership to have something as simple as an oil change done. John Deere actually prevented them from doing oil changes, and of course, the right to repair movement got involved, and it is definitely a big controversy. What I find interesting with this transition into electric tractors is changing oil on a tractor by removing a drain plug and letting some fluid pour out is infinitely easier than working on an electric vehicle tractor. Any type of repairs on a EV is much more difficult than the average skills possessed typically by an ICE engine mechanic. So I find it interesting that the direction appears to be heading more towards factory maintenance and OEM maintenance, especially when it gets into something as complex as a self-driving tractor. Now, the specs on this, do you want to tell us about those, Richard?
Sure, absolutely. So some of these are interesting. So we have 10 hours of runtime and battery swap capability. So we see this being run in China, right? So you run out of battery, take it out, put it on the charger and throw another one in, you're good to go. We haven't seen that a whole lot in the EV space here in the US yet. So that's really exciting.
So your 10-hour use then could become 24-hour or 24/7 if you're constantly swapping batteries. This subject has come up before. Tesla toyed with the idea of a battery swap in a shareholders meeting years ago. Elon was up on stage They rolled out a Model S, and while he was talking, about 90 seconds or so, there was a team of engineers down below that floor on that stage that actually swapped out the entire 1,200-pound battery pack, attempting to prove that battery swaps are feasible and doable. But I think logistics and costs eventually killed that program as far as Tesla, or at least shelved it at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's something they'll revisit in the future. But for now, Foxconn is making it happen, and with a battery that takes 4 to 5 hours to charge, you can be running your tractor as long as you need to be, which is very important for
harvesting. Yes,
for harvesting. Yeah. Now so it has 70 peak horsepower and 40 horsepower continuous. Now, I'm not a farmer. I don't know what the typical horsepower in a tractor is. Pete had made some comment on that earlier in the day. Do you know what the typical horsepower is? How this compares?
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's out of whack, but they're geared fairly low, and it's not like you're trying to go 120 miles an hour.
Hope not.
So yeah, that seems to be an adequate amount of horsepower. Apparently, these also come with smart screens, which you would expect in an EV, diagnostics, graphics, maps, and detailed weather information. What I find fascinating is you can actually gang these together, and you can have a number of tractors operating simultaneously. So picture that in a field. Instead of doing one swath of grain harvest, you actually have up to 8 tractors that are doing that entire section. So your harvest time is greatly reduced, which would probably help with the 4 to 5 hour recharge time. Lift capacity, there we go, 2,200 pounds. The base price on this was the most amazing to me, $58,000 for this tractor. Everything about this disruption is, for the average person, is it cheaper than what I'm currently buying? And if you reduce the cost and get it below the current technology, it's a foregone conclusion that people are going to switch, even though they may not be interested in going green or what the impact of their transportation has on the environment.
Absolutely, it bypasses all of that. And to my knowledge, a normal tractor is well into the hundreds of thousands, right? And a harvester into the millions, yes?
Oh yeah, the combines, for example. So it kind of opens up that question, what else can they electrify? I was using a chainsaw this weekend after a storm swept through Phoenix, and I've got this 2-stroke engine in my hand, dripping oil, spewing out all kinds of hydrocarbons, and I'm thinking to myself, this could be made electric fairly easily. You put a lithium-ion pack in here, and gone is all of that, heat and the smoke and the noise and all the rest of it.
Only a matter of time.
It's coming.
All right. Let's take a look. All right.
We got a couple of questions back here. This one comes from Larry. How many years do you think it would be for EVs to reach 500 miles before they charge? I heard that the F-150 Lightning gets a range of 200 miles, but it can drop if pulling something.
Okay. So that magic 500-mile range, it's already there. The Lucid, Dream, and Aaron, I think we have a tidbit on that as well. That's over 500 miles already. Once we get into graphene technology, those will double and triple the ranges. So it's coming. It looks like Elon sold some more Tesla stock. Should probably talk about that.
Yep. So it looks like he sold 3,273,270 Tesla shares on August 5th, 1,470,041 on the 8th, and then 3,021,586 on the 9th. So that adds up to around 6.9 billion worth of Tesla stock.
Other than the SEC interest in any large stock transactions like this, generally people that are moving their portfolios around are pretty secretive about this. No one has said at Tesla, or Elon has admitted why he sold $6.9 billion worth of Tesla stock. I noticed it myself. I'm a Tesla shareholder, and I couldn't figure out why over the last week or so, Tesla shares continue to look depressed when there's nothing but good news. Usually when there are large sales like this, of course, that would affect things.
Yes.
But the conjecture is, and the suspicion is, that this may have something to do with the Twitter settlement.
Mm-hmm. It looks like, I'm trying to find the quote now, but Elon had tweeted out, or somebody had tweeted to Elon asking, are you going to, if you're able to back out of this deal fully, meaning not pay any fines or any of that, are you going to continue selling Tesla stock? And he said no, flat out. And so I think
yeah, that sounds like your answer then.
I think it's a pretty good indicator of why he's selling, but people can always have other motives too. You know, no one really knows except for Elon why he's selling.
Does our audience have any suspicions as to what may have been taking place here? We'd love to hear it. So let's move on to our next while we're waiting.
Yeah.
Sorry, we do have one more question here real quick from Vambat. How much will the Roadster be after the new Roadster comes out?
Okay, assuming that we're talking about how much will the old Roadster, in other words, increase in value before and after the new one comes out. The old Tesla Roadster originally sold for about $109,000 to $170,000 or so, depending on options. They reached a low point around 2020 when there was no clear-cut solution for a replacement battery pack, and many of us felt that these cars could be idled because no one in the independent space can afford to start creating replacement Tesla Roadster batteries. Two of them sold on eBay in the fall of that year for just under $40,000. These were fully functioning Roadsters. We started a Tesla Roadster matchmaking site on our website. You can check it out. There are probably 30 or more Roadsters for sale there. And what we do is we allow sellers to post their cars on our website. And since our website gets so much traffic, it attracts a lot of buyers. We have almost 300 pre-qualified Roadster buyers and collectors looking for these cars, for example. Once we started to do that, the prices of Roadsters began to climb. They went from $40,000 to $50,000, and invariably people selling their Roadsters on our site would ask, what is it worth? What should I ask? And I always gave them the same response. Always ask for more than you're willing to, your bottom dollar, because people like to feel like they got a bargain, they got a deal. Well, that year, 2021, Roadsters began to climb in value, and they doubled. We're now selling Roadsters on that site typically for $100,000 to $130,000. The other thing that's occurred is the pedigreed Roadsters, the low mileage, low VIN, the Signature 100 and 250 in Europe cars are now regarded by collectors as more valuable, and some of those are selling for astronomical sums. The highest sale that we've recorded on our site was a $295,000 sale of a legacy Roadster. It was VIN number 13 with only 894 miles on the odometer. Another one sold was celebrity owned. The Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer owned this one, and it had a bit of profanity on the carbon fiber plaque that is engraved between the seats. That one sold at an auction for $212,000, and one shortly thereafter without much pedigree other than its Signature 100 status sold for $145,000. So what is our prediction? What will happen to the legacy Roadsters as this new Roadster begins to finally manifest? I can't imagine that they will do nothing but continue to go up at this point. And remember, this is the car that started the electric vehicle revolution. The electric cars have been around for over 100 years. Taxi cabs in New York in 1907 were electric with lead-acid batteries. But it wasn't until the Roadster came along and ignited that passion for a fun electric sports car, and Tesla continued making electric cars, which was the Model S, that the revolution finally began. So I think the Roadster always will have a historic spot.
Agreed. Pete, will you hit me that one?
Sure.
So we're getting an error on TikTok.
So while he's fixing the TikTok error, our other topic is, it looks like the Tesla semi-electric truck with 500 miles of range will start shipping this year, according to Elon Musk, this year meaning 2022. Speculation is that this will come out of the Fremont plant, and let's see if we have any additional data on that.
Well, they first unveiled this in 2017, and the company first guided a startup production in 2019. What do you think about that timeline as far as starting production in 2019 and beginning to ship late 2022?
Well, there are two levels of time on this planet. There's what we live in, and then there's Elon time. Elon time was 2019 for release. Now, some accuse him of overcommitting and under-delivering, but I don't buy it. There are enormous challenges in trying to launch a product like this, and there are so many unforeseens that you don't anticipate at the time that you make an announcement. Supply chain problems. Who had anticipated that? The war in Ukraine, the energy crisis. The current administration spending money like it's going out of style and creating an inflationary period that affects virtually everything. We have a construction project over there for our new service center. And talk about supply chain problems. I can't get copper pipe some days, Electrical wire has tripled in cost. So in all fairness to these missed commitments, there is a lot that is out of control for these companies. But again, best intentions, I think it was a noble effort to get it out by 2019. But if they've made an announcement this year that this is the year, this may be it. I think they know something we don't.
I would think so too. I completely agree. Life happens, no matter who you are, no matter what companies you own or where you're at. Life happens, and you have to just roll with the punches and adjust.
Yeah, totally.
I do want to take a pit stop. So everybody on TikTok, I see your questions. I see you guys typing. At this point, we are not able to answer any questions on TikTok. But if you go over to our YouTube channel and type your questions into the chat there, we can answer them. So if you guys want to hop on over, we'll see if we can get your questions answered.
We have a bit on Ralph Nader.
We do.
Bring that up.
All right.
I remember Ralph. In the 60s, there was a vehicle called the Chevrolet Corvair. My high school buddy had one. And it was a cool little sports car. Problem was we were constantly trying to get it to burn rubber, and we killed a clutch in that car, only to find that because it's a rear mount engine, to change a clutch requires an engine pull, and of course, being a high school kid, he didn't have money to do that sort of thing. So his dad ended up buying him a Chevelle, which he liked better than the Corvair. But the bottom line with this Corvair was Ralph Nader had serious safety concerns with the Chevrolet Corvair. And he even wrote a book, Unsafe at Any Speed. And it was amazing that that kind of grassroots effort actually killed a car. But at the same token, it did a lot of positive things in the automotive industry. I had a 60 Chevy Impala, for example, that had a steel dash. There were no seat belts in that car. And because of Ralph Nader's efforts, all cars eventually were mandated to have seat belts in them. Now, Ralph Nader is currently begging the NHTSA, NHTSA, to pull Tesla's full self-driving software. He says, no one is above the laws of manslaughter, impugning that this is a developing technology but highly dangerous. I'm sure that there are going to be a lot of opinions on this. He's not the only one that has concerns about full self-driving. Was it released too early? Is it dangerous? And is the world ready for full self-driving?
All very valid questions and worth taking a look at. He had some pretty bold statements in his release here. That manslaughter statement being one of them. That is extremely bold and strong. Now, did he have the same kind of comments in in the book or in the writing about the.
Oh, very
Gruber.
much so. In
Okay.
fact, that's why people initially considered him a crackpot and didn't take him seriously until they began to review, some of his positions and found that there was a lot of validity there. In this particular case, my personal opinion is he's off base, but time will tell how this plays out.
Absolutely.
He would like nothing more than to have full self-driving removed from all vehicles.
I heard that.
There's actually a California billionaire, Tom O'Dowd, I think is his name, who's making the same claim. And most recently, I was reading an article this morning, actually. They did some test results showing that it was unsafe, only to find out that FSD wasn't even on when they were doing these tests.
I heard about that as well.
So they need to do their homework a bit better, it looks like. So one of the quotes from Ralph Nader is, Tesla's major development of so-called full self-driving technology is one of the most dangerous and irresponsible actions by a car company in decades. Tesla should never have put this technology into its vehicles. Now, over 100,000 Tesla owners are currently using this technology that research shows malfunctions every 8 minutes. Now, there's a comment that is definitely going to be dissected and challenged in a number of different ways by a number of different people.
Absolutely. As all things should be. Nothing should be taken at face value, but should be checked, corroborated, and then looked at.
Jesse, do we have any questions that need to be entertained?
Yeah, I'm actually. Oh, sorry, I got myself muted. Yeah, so I'm looking at TikTok and YouTube simultaneously. So I'm going to try to see if I can get any TikTok ones here. I think there's only one that I see so far. It said, if I purchase a salvage Tesla, can you guys restore it?
Oh, we get asked that question all the time. If you purchase a salvage Tesla, can we restore it? Absolutely. The follow-up question typically is, can you restore supercharging? The answer to that unequivocally is no. Although we're technically capable of restoring functions like this, remember, it's Tesla giving you free gasoline or free fuel for that car, and it's their prerogative whether they get to continue that or not in a salvage car. There are a number of reasons that Tesla has cited for not allowing salvage cars into supercharger stations. They may not have been restored properly, which is quite likely because Tesla for a long time did not touch salvage cars. So these were usually backyard mechanics that were restoring these cars, and they may not have been following the same safety protocols that a Tesla service center would have been following, so you may have a fire risk at a supercharger location. But the long and short of it is, we can definitely repair and rebuild your car for you and get it back on the road, but we're not able to restore supercharging or free services that Tesla has deemed eligible only to customers that have non-salvage cars. Are there any other TikTok questions?
I don't see any on TikTok. I think we have one here on YouTube. It looks like from Victor said, I heard Elon will never produce an electric motorbike. Are there any other companies that will or they're currently under development? Do you guys know anything about electric motorcycles?
I don't know whether that's an official statement by Tesla that they will never produce electric motorcycles or e-bikes. It would seem to me that as they find some time to explore other markets that support the transition to sustainable energy, they would certainly be interested in continuing and getting into that market. It goes hand in glove with what they're currently doing. But I think we're all grateful that they're focused on getting the products out that they had promised us, such as that Hyper Roadster, the semi-truck, and of course the Cybertruck that all of Texas is waiting for.
There are some companies that have been doing electric motorcycles for some time. I'm looking at, so the first one that comes to mind is Tzero. Tzero has been around since 2006. And they've been the staple for any electric motorcycles. They've been the base, the standard. Now, of course, with the EV revolution, there are a whole lot of other companies jumping on board with this. We have yet to see major manufacturers like Kawasaki or Honda get on board with it as far as motorcycles are concerned, but there are a bunch of startups. It's just like the EV four-wheel industry.
I think we've talked about this in a previous video, but it's always worth mentioning. It's I find it humorous that the whole motorcycle experience definitely has some elements attached to it that an e-bike will never be able to deliver. You know, your average Harley owner, for example, is going to have a lot of chrome on their bikes, which is typically exhaust related, because where else would you put the chrome? And there's a certain level of noise which you know, goes along with that as well. You're going to be missing all of that with an electric motorcycle. It'll be efficient, quiet, fast. Don't need all that chrome. Maybe some bags on the back. That's about it. And it'd be interesting to see how that crowd, with that expectation, is able to migrate into something like this.
Absolutely. I was watching a video the other day on how an electric motorcycle, the aspect of it being electric, opens up the doors for continued innovation. The actual optimal seating position for a two-wheel vehicle is level with the two wheels. So sitting down kind of like this, almost like you're in a car. That gives you the best position on turns, that gives you the best braking ability, and everything. And an electric vehicle gives you that capability. Whereas with an ICE bike, you have to sit on the engine. There's just not a better way to do it. They're the best you can do with an ICE vehicle, but now we have EVs. And now we can improve upon the design and go forward with that. I still, should I get another motorcycle, am going to be getting the typical on top just for that classic feel. No, my mother wouldn't like that very much, but I think I might have to do it.
Yeah, well, my motorcycle days, I remember my sports bike, it was on long trips uncomfortable, especially if you had a helmet on. And it was hard on your neck. You were leaning forward. I remember my hands would go numb at times. And, but yeah, you're right. If it's if you can sit back comfortably, it makes long distance on a motorcycle much more comfortable.
Oh, 100%. It's the classic sport bike versus Harley or cruiser type. You know, a cruiser, you feel like you're sitting on a couch and you can go forever. Where a sport bike like my CBR, I was riding and can almost on like clockwork at 15 minutes, my entire from like here down would go numb, and I'd be sitting there as I'm driving, and I have people looking at me like, "What is he doing? Why are you doing that?" You know. But a laid back version would be cool. Would be nice.
Well, Jesse, do we have any final questions from either YouTube or TikTok?
We don't have any more questions at the moment, so if you guys want to wrap it up, we are coming up on 50 minutes here.
Okay. All right.
We don't have any more articles. I think we've covered the last of what we had.
Absolutely. We want to thank you for joining us. Both Richard and I are pleased that we're able to provide some insights, and make sure to check out our YouTube channel for videos. We have a number of things that are coming online now. One of them is the Roadster Gallery series, where we take some of the over-the-top cars that we've had here, which have an interesting story to boot, and we do a video series on that. There's some really interesting ones coming up that are part of the Tesla history. So stay tuned for that, and we will keep you informed.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you, and it's a pleasure to bring you the latest news.
See you next time.
See you next time.